Castlevania. What a wonderful series that Konami forgets it has. Despite the fact that it's no longer a series that is in the collective consciousness of gamers' minds, or at least definitely not as much as it used to be, it still remains one of my personal favourites. Recently, I'm a person who has played a lot of Castlevania, and I mean a lot of Castlevania. And after playing through all of the games and seeing all that they have to offer, I thought to myself, someone should really make a Belmont family treat in order to try and really hammer home the simple Belmont legacy. Then I decided that person should be me. I'm gonna do that thing. Here is me doing that thing. As you can see here, I just got the timeline already nice and readily presented for your viewing pleasure, so we'll just start from here and then just work our way down. We start simply enough with Leon Belmont. Leon Belmont being the canonical first iteration of the Belmont clan, at least shown on media and or video games. And this is when Leon went on his quest to rescue his betrothed, Sarah. And then Sarah died. But eventually Leon got over her and remarried to an unknown. It's worth noting that there are a lot of unknowns when it comes to this timeline. A lot of unknown marriages, a lot of unknown people as part of the Belmont legacy. General rule of thumb is, if you didn't face the big guy or any meaningful threat, then yeah, you're not going to get mentioned. It doesn't matter if you save the village from a werewolf raid, or lesser vampire raid, zombie raid, whatever the hell's raiding the village at that time. Yeah, if you didn't fight the big guy, then, yeah, you're not worth remembering. A few hundred years later, we get Trevor Belmont, in around the 1400s, who gets married to Cypher Belmont, maiden name being Belnades, who was actually one of his traveling companions in order to fight Dracula during his resurrection at the time. Cypher was also curiously depicted as male, depending on the translation that you were playing as, and also female at the same time. It was kind of weird, but honestly pretty progressive for the Middle Ages, I have to admit. Moving down after Trevor, we have Christopher Belmont. Christopher Belmont being from Castlevania The Adventure and Adventure 2, which also featured his son, Soleil Belmont, who will always go down in history as a Belmont who just got possessed by Dracula, and that's all he'll be remembered for. Thankfully for Soleil though, there was someone who took pity on him and decided to marry him, so he was able to have children, which eventually led to Simon Belmont, probably the most well-known Belmont, especially with how many redesigns he has gotten over the years. But Simon will always go down as being 100% original and will never show up ever again. That's a lie, of course. I'm lying. Just Belmont. It's also entirely possible that he may be Simon's son, depending on how the timelines line up. I personally put him as grandson, mainly because as much as I believe that the genetics are there, him being a Belmont and all, I refuse to believe that those golden locks with that barbaric body somehow gave immediate rise to Just, unless on the off chance he maybe got most of his genetics from his mother's side, whoever that is. Just is also lucky enough to have a, maybe, wife with Lydie Erlanger, who was the main person he was trying to save in Harmony of Dissonance. Except it's a little bit weird, she's more of like a potential love interest, and she's never actually fully confirmed to be Just's wife. That being said, here on this channel we're all about them ships, so she's his wife now. Another super well-known Belmont, which is Richter Belmont, who is also possibly just son and or grandson. However, in this case, I'm more willing to believe that Richter is just son in this case, mainly because of his Symphony of the Night design, which has those luscious flowing locks similar to Just, so I think the genetics there checks out. Also, I just decided to put all of Richter's designs because they're all beautiful. Where is my PSP remake Rondo of Blood costume in Smash Bros, Konami, and Nintendo? An interesting thing to note with Richter is his potential spouse yet again. Never actually confirmed to be his wife, Annette, who was his girlfriend in Rondo of Blood. And also at the forefront of hair dyes in the 1700s, considering she went from purple hair to blonde hair to platinum blonde in the space of every iteration that she's ever shown in. Another noteworthy member of the Belmont family, actually not directly related to them by blood this time around, is Maria Renard, who was also rescued by Richter in Rondo of Blood as a small child. And I guess her family just got murdered in the raid that was happening at the time. because after the adventure was over, Richter decided to take her on into the Belmont family household as his adopted sister. This leads to a super important part of the Belmont history, which is this unknown period right here, because this is the part where Richter gets super embarrassed about being possessed by Shaft in Symphony of the Night, and therefore just decides to relinquish the vampire killer to a completely different family, which is like a weird offshoot of the Belmont clan. After that 200-year period is up, though, we get Julius Belmont, who comes back with a vengeance because he gets back the vampire killer and kills Dracula so hard that he actually destroys his reincarnation sequence. Also, fun fact, this is actually the first time I realized that Julius has a ponytail. I never actually noticed with any of the art until I got this one right here that he had a ponytail. I always thought he just had short hair. That would be the end of our Belmont adventure. However, now we have to go over the Morris clan. You remember that offshoot I was talking about where the vampire killer got given to a different clan for their hiding period for 200 years? Yeah, that was the Morris clan, which starts with Quincy Morris from Bram Stoker's Dracula. Because the book is canon now. That moves us on to John Morris, son of Quincy Morris, who took on not Dracula, but a different powerful vampire in the middle of World War I. He wasn't alone when he was doing that. He was actually with someone else. But that being said, we'll probably need to mention them at some point. But regardless, for now, John Morris used the vampire killer to kill another vampire. And was also going all across Europe in order to do this. Then we got John's son, who was originally named Jonathan Morris, who, just like Pups, decided that a world war was a good time in order to face the legions of the undead. But unlike his father, Jonathan Morris was actually able to fight the big man himself, although he also needed some help to do so. But that's the Morris clan. Okay, so I wasn't actually gonna do this originally, but it seems like I need to force my hand a little bit, because remember that other team up I was mentioning with John Morris with a friend? Yeah, that was Eric Lecade, who I was not actually going to mention his family because technically they're not related to the Belmonts. However, in lore, in order for the Morris clan, in order to unleash the full potential of the vampire killer, which is of course very important to the legacy of the Belmonts, as Leon Belmont made readily apparent, he needs to team up with the Lecade family. Only when they are together can they actually unlock the latent power of the vampire killer, which honestly, to me, it's enough of a reason to also include them. We had Eric Lecade, who wielded the Alucard spear, taking, once again, a weapon from a completely different family to use to their own ends. Then, Eric had two daughters, who were Stella and Loretta Lecade, who then teamed up with John's son, Jonathan Morris, in order to unlock the full potential of the vampire killer. Okay, one more offshoot, I swear. Because there was actually one more with the Wygol village, which was found in Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, which was before any of these two families over here. Wygol village was actually founded by Shinoa, who actually has nothing to do with the Belmonts. She's not related in any way, but I wanted to mention her because she's cool, and why isn't there more fan art of her available online for my viewing perusal? That being said, the Wygol villagers are a bunch of villagers that, for some reason, all congregated together, and they all have Belmont DNA in them. It's part of the plot of that game. It's really complicated, but yeah, that's just some random village off in the mountains somewhere that just has all of the Belmont's DNA. Jesus Christ, Genghis Khan would be jealous with the amount of seed that this family has passed around. And there we go. That is all of it. The entire Belmont legacy of the first timeline. Yes, because what is not continuity if it's not something that you could just bend over and meld to your will whenever you just feel like it's really convenient for your convenience sake. Just give me a sec. Yeah, I'm just gonna need to put this next to it now, because we got another entirely different timeline that we need to deal with, but hopefully that shouldn't get us complex as this one, hopefully. So we'll just continue a little bit longer, don't worry. Thus begins Timeline 2, also known as Alucard fucks his way into the Belmont family, as we shall see with this new timeline. You see, the actual original start of Castlevania was with Sonia Belmont from Castlevania Legends, who was actually also the first female Belmont, but because her game was so terrible, they decided that her game doesn't deserve to be canon. But in her game, she started what is sort of commonly referred to as the Gaiden Timeline, which is the non-canon timeline. And in that timeline, she also starts by having a baby with Alucard, who she teamed up with a little bit. And in the true ending, she has a son, who is represented by this picture right here. By the way, I should mention, for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to include every single one of the crossovers over on Timeline 1. Instead of nobodies after Cypher and Trevor, though, we actually have a new Belmont, Sid Belmont, who is from the game book, The Legend of Satanic Castle, The Vampire Hunters, which was a choose-your-own-adventure style book. Actually doesn't have really a confirmed place in the non-canonical timeline, but considering a lot of the book has the classic types of monsters with like Medusa and Cyclops, most likely it was somewhere around in the 1500s, and since Trevor was in the 1400s, I figured that that would be the best place for him to live. Okay, so the next two, I actually just decided that it would be worth just putting them all up at once, because that would be the easiest to follow, because we need to start with Pierre Belmont, who only appears in a offshoot manga called New Gambare Goemon, Chapter Hell, which is the second issue, which is a manga that features mystical ninjas starring Goemon's Goemon, which is another Konami franchise. And in that they go to hell, and they meet Pierre Belmont, who is the confirmed grandfather of Simon Belmont, at least in this continuity. However, we still have Christopher Belmont, that is not the same Christopher Belmont on Timeline 1, but is based off of Christopher Belmont from Timeline 1, even though he only appears in a graphic novel called The Belmont Legacy Castlevania. And in this timeline, he actually has a confirmed wife with Ileana Belmont, who they do have a son, which is implied to be Salil, but is never named Salil. However, it is also needed for Simon to be here, because Pierre is his confirmed grandfather, and in order for any of this to make any sense, Simon is now Christopher's son. Like I said, continuity, sometimes you just need to take it and just smash it with a hammer! We need to move on to Simon's spouses, because he actually does have a confirmed spouse in this timeline, in the form of Selena. Except not really, because Selena was only shown in the opening of Haunted Castle, which was just put into Castlevania, except due to the weird nature of this game, they decided that that it's just going to be a weird dream sequence where Simon imagined getting married to a person called Selena. That being said, he does actually get a confirmed wife with Mina, who is someone we're going to elaborate on a little bit later. Then moving on from Simon, we got Desmond and Dolores and Zoe Belmont, who are from a Nokia mobile game called Castlevania Order of Shadows, which is terrible and is probably the worst Castlevania I have ever played. Anyway, I think from just here on out, I'm just not going to include the spouses, because, I mean, you get the idea already that most of them are unknowns, not worth remembering, so why should I put them on the timeline? Because they're clearly not worth remembering. Plus, it will just make things simpler overall, so we're just gonna move on. Victor Belmont, who is ironically from the game that was cancelled called Castlevania Resurrection. And you may be thinking, wait, is it really right to include a Belmont from a cancelled video game? And to that I answer, this is my timeline, goddammit. Anyway, Victor was around during the hiding period of the Belmonts in the 1800s, and gave his vampire killer to a completely different family than the Morris clan, which we'll get to in a second. And then next we have Simon Belmont, Except not that Simon Belmont from before. No. This is a different Simon Belmont, because this Simon Belmont is an actor, except this Simon Belmont is an actor that portrays the earlier Simon Belmont up there, and also is how we get the confirmed wife of earlier Simon Belmont, because Mina is actually another character that was being played by Simon actor's co-star Lucy, in order to portray Simon's wife, who was Mina. But yeah, he was active during, like, the 1950s, somewhere around there, and was from another game book, Devil's Castle Dracula, The Old Castle. Then we got Simon Belmont III. He's from a weird series called the YY series, which was a Konami series, which guest starred a whole bunch of different Castlevania and all their other franchises. That being said, it clearly says the third, which means he has to be after Simon Belmont the actor, and Simon Belmont the original Simon Belmont, because otherwise that makes no goddamn sense. So I guess he was Simon's son, who was narcissistic, and just decided to name also his son Simon. Kokoro Belmont! Because of course there was an anime girl Belmont. Kokoro Belmont appeared in the spin-off game for Gradius called Automedius Excellence on the Xbox 360, and was taking place in the futuristic year of 2011, and let me tell you, I'm super pissed that we got past 2011 and we don't have jet waifus that are flying around. 630 years later, we get Simondo Belmont, who appears as a secret boss in the game Contra Hardcore, and is a reference to a Japanese vocalist called Masato Shimon. And Masato Shimon had this dope-ass afro, which is why this Belmont has an afro, and since it's Masato Shimon, that's why it explains that he uses taiyakis as weapons, and no, you don't get any context for that. Anyway, here's Reinhard Schneider, and here's Rosa, as I mentioned earlier, because unlike in Timeline 1, where the Morris clan got the vampire killer, in Timeline 2, the non-canon timeline, it was the Schneider family. Thankfully, no relation to Rob Schneider, or at least God, I hope not. That would be the end once again, except, as I recall saying, this is Timeline 2. Which means Alucard fucks his way into the family, which means, Dracula's family needs to get added. On Dracula's side of the family, for Timelines 1 and 2, it's actually quite a lot of overlap, so honestly we don't have to worry too much in that regard. In Timeline 1, Dracula started out as Matthias Cronquist, who was a friend to Leon Belmont, who was also married to Elizabeth Cronquist, except she dies off camera, which leads to Matthias to go on a vengeful rampage, which leads to him becoming a vampire and eventually turning into Dracula Vlad Tepes, more commonly known as Dracula. However, Dracula then finds a second wife with Lisa, which really begs the question why Dracula has a thing for women with Lisa in their names, because that seems to be a thing that he likes doing. But Lisa also died a horrible death, being burnt at the stake for being presumed that she was practicing witchcraft, even though she was an alchemist and she was actually trying to practice science, but the church was having none of that, once again proving that religion ruins everything. And that's what led to Dracula waging his war on humanity, as Dracula Vlad Tepes being resurrected every 100 years because he's super salty about both of his wives getting killed. But it doesn't stop there, because not only did he have two wives that both horribly died, Dracula also had another wife called the Countess, who got cancelled because she was supposed to be in Castlevania Resurrection with Victor, and also, weirdly enough, Sonia, who was also supposed to be in that game, but until she got retconned out of existence. Before dying though, Lisa, Dracula's second wife, was actually able to have a son with Dracula, which is Adrian F. Tepes, most commonly referred to as Alucard throughout the series, and one of the mainstays across all the Castlevanias. That being said, Alucard also gets around, because not only did he have a fling with Maria, which actually ended up not going anywhere after everything, which was confirmed in a sequel to Castlevania Symphony of the Night in the form of a late-night radio drama known as Akumajo Dracula X Suiko no Yasokyoku. But in Timeline 2, he had another descendant known as Layla, who was the one that teamed up with Sid, potentially. So Alucard been sleeping around just as much as his dad has. Next we have hosts. I don't know how hosts are represented on a family tree. Reincarnation, as you might have guessed, is not a common thing. That being said, I just decided they're here now. So, first we got Malice from Timeline 2, who was a child born that was the resurrected Count Dracula before he turned into a young adult version of Dracula, even though there was an old man version of Dracula in Castlevania 64. Then over, in Timelines 1 and 2, we had the, after the destruction of Dracula in 1999, he was reincarnated as Graham Jones first originally, although that lasted for about 60 seconds until Graham realized that he wasn't the true reincarnation, which then fell to Soma Cruz, who said he's not all about that new edgy life with his new edgy redesign, until his sequel game, where he was once again called forth as the new Dark Lord, or at least a potential new Dark Lord with the resurrection of Dracula, along with two others, Dmitry Blinov, who had the ability to copy Dracula's abilities, and Dario Bozzi, who had the ability to have the mastery of fire that Dracula had, while Soma Cruz had the ability to dominate monsters that Dracula had. Speaking of sons, Dracula had another son! 10,000 years in the future! Kid Dracula, who went on an adventure in his NES game in order to defeat Galamoth. And I'm not sure how Galamoth went from looking like this to looking like this. I guess 10,000 years does things to you. That would be it for the Dracula family. But Dracula had a niece. I don't know when he got a niece. I don't know Dracula had a brother or one of the wives that he married, but yeah, Dracula has a niece. The Bartley family. Elizabeth Bartley. Elizabeth Bartley was actually the vampire that John Morris and Eric Lacarde over in Timeline 1 decided to fight. So, she existed, she was around in 1421, but Elizabeth Bartley then had a descendant known as Ivan Bartley, who was found in the graphic novel mentioned before with Christopher Belmont. And Ivan Bartley was the one that had been trying to resurrect Dracula, and then he also had a niece known as Sona Bartley. And Sona Bartley died a terrible death being used by Dracula as his plaything. So she had a very fulfilling life. And that's it for the Dracula family. God damn it. Screw it! I'm adding the Belnades to the tree. Timeline 1. Charlotte Orlan teamed up with Jonathan Morris. Yoko Belnades helped team up with Julius and Soma Cruz in 1999 and in 2035 and 36 respectively. Timeline 2. Zoak Belnades teamed up with Sid Belmont, Harry Fernandez, because their names changed at some point, who pseudo teamed up with Reinhard Schneider in Castlevania 64, but also had a cousin who turned and died, known as Camilla Fernandez. And there we have it, the entire family tree of Belmonts. Except there's a third timeline! And the best part is, in this timeline, the Belmonts aren't even related by blood! And the timeline's called the Demon Blood Nightmare Saga Timeline! Okay, this is a nice picture and all, but I need the space right now, so yeah, you have got to go. You see, in this timeline, the Belmont name is actually not a family name, but a title that is passed down between all of the different Belmonts. We got Sybil Belmont, Elias Belmont, Ray Belmont, and Simon Belmont. Except that was not actually their original names. No, they only got given those names and the title of Belmont after being chosen. And somehow, this makes Ray from Rise of the Skywalker even more unoriginal due to the fact there is a Ray Belmont right here who took the name Belmont, similar to how Ray took the name Skywalker, and honestly, I just find that kind of hilarious. Also, in the Demon's Blood Saga, we have another Simon, as I just mentioned, except this Simon, when he gets to the end of his life, renames himself to Prznik, which is a reference to Prznik, which is a type of vampire hunter with shamanistic powers that can turn into spirit animals, and that is, thankfully, all there is to the Demon's Blood Nightmare Saga. What's that? Is there another timeline? You mean a fourth timeline? Of course there's a bloody fourth timeline. I'm gonna give you your fucking fourth timeline. The Lords of Shadow Timeline. Because after all of everything they've done, Konami said, fuck it. Let's just start all over. And you'd think, upon first glance, that it'd be really simple. Until you realize that the Belmonts and the Dracula family in the Lords of Shadow timeline are the same family! Gabriel Belmont, who gets turned into Dracula, is married to Maria Belmont, who is there to just be Gabriel's wife. They give birth to Trevor Belmont, who gets turned into Alucard after Trevor tries to defeat his father, and then his father realizes that he just killed his own son, so then uses his blood to turn him into a vampire to stop him from dying. Cypher is also here to get killed off. In this continuity, Trevor and Cypher give birth to Simon Belmont, and then Simon is married to Selena. Not the same Selena from before. Just some chick that there was offhand mentioned in an art book. We don't even get a picture. And then, again in this timeline, the Belmonts go into hiding again. But they put all the other hidings to shame, because this time they hide for near over 500 years. And after 500 years of literally doing nothing, we finally end with Victor Belmont. And that's the whole thing, the whole legacy. It's really simple. Hey guys, I just wanted to say thank you very much for watching my video. It's the first time that I've ever made something like this, and to be honest, there's already loads of areas that I know that I can improve, and I hope to do that with more videos like this, because this was seriously a lot of fun to do. Just be sure to share this video around as much as possible. It seriously helps out. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that goodness, if you want to see more stuff like this in the future. And don't you worry, there's going to be more of my traditional content that I've been doing, so don't worry about that. You can also find me on twitch.tv/FieldAniche if you want to see me play some weird niche video games, because that's what I like doing best. Thank you so much one more time, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.